All right, folks, hello and welcome back to Online English Class. Today is Tuesday, May the 19th. Tomorrow you will be taking your AP Language final on Wednesday at 2 p.m. All right, so today we're going to be talking about the sixth and final point in the scoring criteria, the sophistication point, the highbrow point. All right, and before we talk about that point, let's quickly run through the top of the week announcements. A couple things that you need to hear me say. First of all, make sure that you turn your books in when you are done with your work for the semester so I don't have to charge you. Second, remember when the exam is, Wednesday, 2 p.m. All right. Third, remember to continue taking care of your daily discussion grade procedure. There is no unique assignment today, just simply the standard question, reflection, or summary. Remember to finish the process of preparing for your exam individually as you see fit. Okay. Finally, make sure that you've engaged with this information so that you have some kind of knowledge of what is coming at you on Wednesday at 2. Okay, so for a summary of that, right, we can go to this webpage that we've already looked at multiple times. It summarizes the fact that the exam will be on May 20th, that it will be at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. We are in the Eastern Time Zone, so it will be at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Make sure that you log in 30 minutes before the start of your exam using your e-ticket. Your e-ticket will be emailed to you. In fact, you ought to have it by now for sure. All right. The exam question will automatically appear. The timer will start to count down. You'll have 45 minutes to read and construct your response, and then you'll have 5 minutes to submit that response. Okay, so all of this information is summarized for you neatly. You should have already engaged with all this information. There's a little bit of new information, though. Okay, so there have been sporadic, a few cases in which students haven't been able to submit their work once they're done with the exam. So they type up their exam, they upload their attachment, and they say submit, 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 but it doesn't go through. All right, that more than likely won't happen to you. All right, but if it does, okay, because it has happened to other students, the College Board offered an alternative submission process that is made available to students who were not able to submit their response. Okay, if that happens to you, you can email your response. If you get the message that we did not receive your response, then you can email an attachment of your response to the College Board with an email that they will provide to you. Okay, so if you get that prompting, read the screen, remain calm, follow the prompts, send the email to the correct address, and everything will be okay. Okay. Worst case scenario. All right, everything goes haywire. Then we simply sign you up for the makeup date, which ought not happen. All right, so you should be totally ready to go, and you shouldn't have any problems with this. So don't stress about this at all. All right, so. Beyond that, right, you need to make sure that you are ready to turn that quarter 4 essay into me by May 22nd. Okay, so hopefully you've got I'm already getting submissions today. I got some yesterday. All right, so if you are ready to turn that in, you absolutely can. And that will conclude your work for the semester once you take that exam tomorrow. Okay, so without any further ado, let's go ahead and jump back into the review process for our exam. All right, so the final portion of the scoring criteria that we are going to be discussing today involved in the process of rhetorical analysis is the sophistication point. Okay, so you get 1 point on the scoring criteria for demonstrating sophistication of thought, all right, and or developing a complex understanding of the rhetorical situation. Now, in order to display the sophistication of thought, the College Board offers 3 sort of criteria for what it means to have been highbrow. Okay, so I'm going to start with the last one. Employing a style that is consistently vivid and persuasive. In other words, writing well, writing clearly, writing in such a way that it is clear that you understand the basic conventions of the English language. All right. Second area of sophistication, explaining the purpose or function of the passage's complexities or tensions. In other words, if there is an area of the text that is particularly complex or seems to suggest a kind of tension, that you explain the function of that tension, why it's there. I'll give you some examples of that. That's probably abstract at this point. And then perhaps most straightforwardly, making sure that you explain in a significant, well-developed way the writer's choices given the rhetorical situation. Okay, so not just talking vaguely about the rhetorical choices that are made, but talking about how the rhetorical choices affect the audience specifically, which is what I've been telling you to do all along anyways. Okay, always, always, always consider how those rhetorical choices aren't just appealing vaguely to anyone all the time, right? Because they're making them feel good or whatever, right? But rather how they are appealing specifically to a specific audience in a specific context. Okay, so those three elements are what the College Board deems a sophisticated analysis. Okay, so in order to expand our understanding of this, what I would like to do quickly is to describe in a little more detail what the College Board means, all right, by this first point, what it means to employ a style that is consistently vivid and persuasive. Well, in the course's standards, right, it describes what the style of your writing should be like, how you should stylize your own writing. Okay, what it means to have to write vividly and persuasively within this specific rhetorical situation. Well, first of all, you need to use words and syntax and comparisons to convey a specific tone. What specific tone? Objective, analytical. All right, in an argument. All right, so note, right? You don't want to be satirical. You don't want to be indifferent. In your tone here, what you want to be is objective, analytical, and perceptive. All right, so how do you use words and syntax to convey that kind of tone? You don't mess up over and over again. You don't misuse words constantly. All right, you use commas the way that they're supposed to be used. You structure your sentences in order to communicate your thoughts clearly. All right, that brings us to our next point. You're writing sentences that clearly convey ideas and arguments. All right, use parallelism, use subordination when appropriate. All right, structure your sentences according to the rhetorical effect that it's wise for you to structure them as. More often than not, this just means you guys should write the way that you've been trained to write. Okay, don't overthink this. Just write the way you've been trained to write. Okay. And then finally, you need to use the established conventions of grammar and mechanics to communicate clearly and effectively. All right. Now, what does a sophisticated, vivid, and persuasive style look like in actual practice? Well, if we look at this past student response, sample PP, about the Gandhi text from the 2019 exam, we're going to see an example of a sophisticated style. I want to look first at this paragraph, all right? So first of all, right, we begin with a transition throughout his letter. Gandhi is conciliatory and respectful. All right, so this word conciliatory or conciliatory, that means that he is attempting to make sure that his audience believes that he's not trying to attack them. He's being nonviolent, in other words. Okay, so this is a well-selected word choice, and this is another well-selected word choice. He is respectful. All right, this transition here, which ends with a comma because it is an introductory phrase, right? Introductory phrase, comma, right? Helps signal the area of the text that the student's going to pay attention to. Obviously, this first paragraph discusses Gandhi's ethos appeal throughout the letter. Throughout the letter, Gandhi is this way and this way. Okay, so he writes the British with the intent of asking for the reversal of a law, comma, so he knows that he must be polite and courteous. All right, the so is one of the fanboys. All right, and so therefore these two independent clauses need to be separated by a comma. The student knows that and deploys the use of a comma appropriately there. Okay, so this is just a consistent, solid style. His demeanor conveys to the British his sense of servitude to the British in lines 16 through 20. All right, so a little bit of a hiccup here with redundancy, but is that enough to destroy the entire sophistication of the argument? No. So this is, again, a testimony. It doesn't have to be perfect, right? If this were a multi-draft essay, I'd say, dude, you're being redundant, right? He conveys his sense of servitude to the British in lines 16 through 20. However, comma, right? So this little transitional word, however, comma, he is not stepping down, all right, comma, but rather standing up to the British respectfully. He states that he, and then an integrated quotation, he does not seek to harm your people, end quote, which, all right, so we've got a comma here as we transition into analysis, which simultaneously reassures the British of nonviolence, but also conveys Gandhi's sense of urgency. He is going to act. He is going to do something, and he is informing the British of it. All right, these technically should be semicolons since these are independent clauses. But once again, is that a grave enough error to destroy the overall sophistication and consistently clear style of the essay? No. All right. Notice again the inclusion, the integration of the quotations, and the ways in which the student is integrating these quotations into existing sentences that make sense. All right. So, in other words, how is this essay grammatically? Is it perfect? No. Is it vivid? Is it persuasive? Is it consistently readable? Yes. All right. If you have trouble with some of these basic kinds of comma rules or how to use a semicolon or how to introduce a quotation, you can go. This is actually a link from the College Board themselves, which is a summary of common errors, the most common errors in student writing. Okay, so you can follow this link that I have right here on my page. Just Google it. All right, UVic English, the UVic Writer's Guide Summary of Common Errors. Okay, you Google a bunch of that, you'll find where you're at. You'll find where I am, and you can hear them discuss what a comma splice is and how to avoid it. All right, some of you guys are big time comma splicers. You overuse commas, all right, or you don't use them quite in the right place. I would invite you spend some time boning up on your comma rules. What a run-on sentence is, how to avoid it. What a sentence fragment is, how to avoid it. What wordiness is, how to avoid it. Overuse of the passive voice, how to avoid it. Faulty parallelism, how to avoid it. Faulty agreement between subject and verb, how to avoid it, right? In other words, if you want to bone up on these areas of style, I wouldn't spend all night doing it, okay? But it might be wise for you to help get you to the point where you're writing, you've consciously reflected on some of these rules, and you're able to apply it in your own writing as you are spitting out these analytical prose, okay? But listen, grammar is not the only aspect covered in the sophistication point, okay? You want to be highbrow, you not only have to be grammatically correct and coherent, not perfect, but overall correct and overall coherent, you also need to demonstrate sophisticated thoughts, not just sophisticated writing, but sophisticated thinking and understanding of the rhetoric being deployed in the text. Okay, so one example of that is understanding the function of the passage's complexities or tensions. Okay, so I want to point that out, that the existence of that in this paragraph out once again. Okay, so one of the tensions in the text is that Gandhi is both respectful and characterizing himself as a nonviolent man, but also it's really easy for us to confuse nonviolence and respect with weakness, right? Isn't that easy to do, right? Nonviolence and a respectful approach to another individual is oftentimes associated with weakness, all right? But Gandhi is anything but weak in the letter. And one of the tensions that the student points out is the fact that he is both conciliatory and respectful, but he's also standing up against the British. But he does so respectfully. He does so non-violently. He doesn't step down. He's not writing the letter as an expression of his submission to the British. He's not submitting to them. In fact, he's not he's threatening them in a very nonviolent way. Like he's basically saying, if you don't do X, Y, and Z, which is the right thing to do, by the way, then there are going to be some consequences, and you are going to suffer them. All right. So, in other words, one of the tensions in the text that the writer notices and then explains is this tension in Gandhi's tone. All right, this tension in Gandhi's ethos appeal, right, where he is both characterizing himself as a nonviolent man, but also courageous, as a man who is aware of the risks of that which he is going to undertake, but willing to undertake them nonetheless. All right, why? Because they're right. That's that's called being courageous. Okay. Then the student goes on to discuss, with respect to another aspect of the scoring criteria, how Gandhi's rhetorical choices affect the British audience specifically, okay, as law keepers, as the rulers of a land who are meant to keep the peace and establish justice, okay? So if we look back to that scoring criteria, the third area of the sophistication point is understanding the relevance of the writer's rhetorical choices given the rhetorical situation, okay? So the student already articulates an understanding of the larger rhetorical situation as Gandhi is attempting to, like the American Revolution, establish independence from the British, okay? So we already have kind of a sense of the larger rhetorical context or situation here. The student is, in other words, not an idiot. The student knows some basic things about history and who Gandhi was, and the long-time relationship between British colonial control of India. Okay, so the student's not reading this document in a vacuum. They understand a little bit about the rhetorical situation. So when they get into analyzing the pathos appeal in the document, the experience of feeling guilty or blamed for the bad things that are about to unfold in India on account of British injustice, right? The student explains that Gandhi is specifically trying to make his audience, not his audience vaguely, not his audience of human beings in general from all across time, but rather his audience of British colonial overlords, feel guilty because it is their laws, which laws are supposed to incur or lead to a just society. It is their unjust laws that are ultimately going to lead to some really bad things unfolding. All right, that evokes a sense of what? A sense of guilt. Okay, so in other words, it becomes very clear that this student is not only employing a consistently vivid style, all right, but also that the student is describing the relevance of the rhetorical choices within the context, within the situation, and also, importantly, is explaining some of the complexities or tensions or nuances in the passage. Like, for instance, Gandhi is both nonviolent and courageous. All right, we tend to dissociate those two kinds of things, right? When we think of a hero or courage, we think of Rambo with an M60. All right, not exactly Gandhi behaving nonviolently and writing letters to his enemy that assures them that he's not trying to embarrass them at all, right? So that tension is explained as an important rhetorical choice that is made by the writer, Gandhi, in order to persuade his specific audience, the British Lord Irwin and the rest of the colonial government. Okay? So, in other words, what grade should this student essay get? Well, guys, a 6 out of 6. All right, it has done all of the things that we have described that an effective essay ought to do through the course of our review of the composition skills necessary to write an effective essay. Those being, it has a defensible thesis statement that articulates the goal that Gandhi's trying to accomplish and the choices that he makes within the rhetorical situation to accomplish that goal. It then deploys a series of body paragraphs. Notice there are 3. All right, what an amazing and unexpected choice. It deploys a series of body paragraphs with textual evidence that is commented on or analyzed by the student, explaining how multiple rhetorical choices contribute to the larger goal that the speaker is trying to accomplish with respect to his audience. And finally, the student's argument is consistently vivid in its presentation. It explains the function of some of the passage's complexities and tensions. And finally, explains in detail how the writer's choices are affecting the audience in the rhetorical situation. In other words, this student knows how to read rhetoric and write about rhetoric just like you do. Okay, so tomorrow on your exam, just remember these 6 points and strategically orient your writing so that you are getting those 6 points so that you are upping the likelihood that your reader, who is not me, all right, that your reader, whoever that may be, looks at your writing and has no other choice, no other logical choice, but to award you as many possible points that you can earn. Okay, so remember how to read rhetoric as we have reviewed throughout the course of our review. Remember how to write about rhetoric as we have reviewed through the course of our studies. And finally, remember, as we discussed today, how to develop what the College Board deems a sophisticated argument, one that takes account of the significance of the writer's choices, one that is consistently and vivid in its style, and finally, one that takes account of the complexities or tensions of the passage. All right, that is all that I have for you guys. That concludes our work for the year. That concludes my instruction for you largely. We'll reconvene on Thursday after the exam briefly just to remind you of how to close down the year. But essentially, everything that you need to know in order to be successful on your exam, I have done my utmost to give you all of that information, to give you detailed explanations of what is expected of you. And now, all that you have remaining to do is show up at 2 p.m. And absolutely crush that thing. Okay, I am so confident in you guys, and regardless of the outcome, regardless of whether or not the passage is written in Chinese and nobody passes, or if everybody passes, I want you all to know that I am proud of your accomplishments in the class. I appreciate your attention and your patience with me. I know that I can be a taxing teacher to work under. I expect a lot of my students on a daily basis. We tend to keep our nose to the grindstone. It's in my nature, and I know that that can be hard to deal with. And I just absolutely am so grateful to get to teach students like you guys. I mean it completely unironically. I love you all. I appreciate all of you. It is genuinely the greatest honor of my life to get to teach school to you guys. It is my favorite thing to do. I missed you during the extended cancellation, but I think also that we have responded with great resilience to these abnormal circumstances, and continue the process of working toward excellence despite impediments in our way. So for that, I congratulate all of us and all of you in particular. All right, so have a great day. Crush your exam. No video tomorrow. Make sure you log in 30 minutes before. Get your e-ticket and conquer that thing like a young Alexander. All right. Have a great day.